We have already covered that pure devotional service brings immediate relief from all kinds of material distress, kleshagni, and pure devotional service is the beginning of all auspiciousness, a subhata, and those in pure devotional service derive even the concept of liberation, which is moksha lagutakrit, and pure devotional service is rarely achieved, which is called sudulama. So today we're going to complete 2 more, and then possibly also begin chapter 2 for today. So today we're going to cover that pure devotional service automatically puts one in transcendental pleasure, Sandha, Sandhananda Visheshatma, and pure devotional service is the only means to attract Krishna, Sri Krishna Akasha. So we're going to go to this 5th and 6th ones, and that will take us to page number 15. And before that, we can do the invocation together. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So we're on page number 15 in the Nectar of Devotion, and the 5th characteristic is the happiness of becoming one with the Supreme, which actually means it cannot be compared with devotional service or bhakti or concentrated bliss. So can you put that on the screen for us?
Sure, Maharaj.
Page 15, chapter 1, the happiness of becoming one with the Supreme. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So I'm reading. Srila Rupa Goswami says that Brahmananda, or the happiness of becoming one with the Supreme, is multiplied. No, let me start that again. Srila Rupa Goswami says that if Brahmananda, or the happiness of becoming one with the Supreme, is multiplied by 1 trillion fold, it still cannot compare to an atomic fraction of the happiness derived from the ocean of devotional service. In the Hari Bhakti Sudodhaya, Prahlad Maharaj, while satisfying Lord Nishingadev by his prayers, says, quote, "My dear Lord of the universe, I am feeling transcendental pleasure in your presence and have become merged in the ocean of happiness. I now consider the happiness of Brahmananda to be no more than water in the impression left by a cow's hoof in the earth compared to this ocean of bliss. Similarly, it is confirmed in the Bhagavata Dipika, Sridhar Swami's commentary on the Srimad Bhagavatam, quote, "My dear Lord, some of the unfortunate persons were swimming in the ocean. My dear Lord, some of the fortunate persons were swimming in the ocean of your nectar of devotion and who are relishing the nectar of the narration of your pastimes. Certainly no ecstasies which immediately minimize the value of the happiness derived from religiousness economic development, self-gratification, and liberation. Such a transcendental devotee regards any kind of happiness other than devotional service as no better than a straw in the street. Omajnana atimirandasya agyananjana shalakaya chakshurun militam yena tasmai shri guruve namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakti Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So nectar of devotion, or Bhakti Ras Amrita Sindhu, the ocean of the nectar of devotional service. So here, if we compare the devotional service and the happiness in devotional service as the vast ocean, even the happiness that is derived from becoming one with Brahma or Brahmananda would not even compare to one drop of the ocean of devotional service. In fact, if one makes a comparison, it is a sort of kind of offense if one makes a comparison. And in the second paragraph towards the end, we see that Prahlad Maharaj is addressing Lord Nishingadev in his prayers and is including not only Brahmananda, the one with the Supreme, in the sense of concentrated bliss, but better than that is that you cannot even compare bhakti to that. But here Prahlad Maharaj says even dharma or mundane religiosity, artha or economic development, and dharma artha kama, which means sense gratification, and moksha means for liberation. That means one wants to become free from the miseries of the material world. Such happiness within mundane religiosity or economic development or sense gratification and liberation, becoming free from the material world, it cannot even be compared to the happiness or to the bliss or ecstasy in devotional service. In the material world, people are actually in a broad category involved in these four things. Dharma means mundane religiosity, and sometimes people make up religions. In other words, they create some religion, and there's a beginning of that with some so-called religious leader, and so forth. And economic development means that people are busy in trying to educate themselves in such a way that they find a decent job, or they get involved in trying to make more and more money thereafter. And for what sake? To enjoy sense gratification, or to give sense gratification to one's attachments. And when one becomes fed up, then one actually wants to become free from the miseries of the material world, which is called a type of liberation. Now I'm continuing to read, which is the final beautiful characteristic. It is like the best characteristic of all these other characteristics in relation to pure devotional service. So in the same page, in the end, it says attracting Krishna. So can you put that onto the screen for us, please? So this is called Sri Krishna Akashani. Akashani means attracting Krishna. It's a wonderful actual heading, which I'll discuss now. I'm reading. Srila Rupa Goswami has stated that devotional service attracts even Krishna. Krishna attracts everyone, but devotional service attracts Krishna. The symbol of devotional service in the highest degree is Radharani. Krishna is called Madan Mohan, which means that he is so attractive that he can defeat the attraction of thousands of cupids. But Radharani is still more attractive, for she can even attract Krishna. Therefore, devotees call her Madan Mohana Mohini, the attractor of Cupid. To perform devotional service means to follow in the footsteps of Radharani. And devotees in Vrindavan put themselves under the care of Radharani in order to achieve perfection in their devotional service. In other words, devotional service is not an activity of the material world. It is directly under the control of Radharani. In Bhagavad Gita, it is confirmed that the Mahatmas, or great souls, are under the protection of Devi Prakriti, the internal energy, Radharani. So being directly under the control of the internal potency of Krishna, devotional service attracts even Krishna himself. It's a wonderful, you could say, topmost characteristic of pure devotional service. That attracting Krishna, the name Krishna means one who attracts everyone. Now, if somebody attracts that one who attracts everyone, how much more powerful that person may be. So therefore, Krishna attracts everyone, but devotional service attracts Krishna. And the symbol, where you could see the personification of devotional service in the topmost level, highest degree, is Srimati Radharani. And these nice words are there, that Krishna is called Madan Mohan, one who attracts everyone. And Radharani is called Madan Mohan Mohini, one who attracts the one who attracts everyone. See? So in our temple, near our temple rather in Vrindavan, Krishna Balaram Mandir, and between our temple and the temple of Sri Sri Radha Madan Mohan, when we go on the Parikram path, there is one beautiful place there in which Cupid, Kamadev is a demigod in charge of inciting lust. Kamadev, Cupid. He came to Vrindavan and he actually didn't really, you could say, fully understand Krishna's position. And he came to shoot his arrows at Lord Krishna to sort of make him lusty in that sense. Now, you know, in different places they say Cupid's arrow is made of different things. You know, it's like, it's a very, Cupid is, or Kamadev is like on the subtle level more than anything else. Because when he shoots his arrows at somebody and they get lusty or agitated, they really don't know that Kamadev is doing that to them. See? So sometimes the arrows, are made of, sometimes they say, like hot sugarcane juice. Now, from a gross level, we cannot imagine an arrow made of hot sugarcane juice, but it's like that on a subtle level. And his bow is made up of fragrant flowers. So you can understand that, fragrant flowers, shooting off this hot sugarcane juice is quite a kind of combination in a sense, which cannot really be seen or understood because it's on a, you could say, subtle level. So this is what the arrows of Madan, which means Cupid or Kamadev. Another name is Madan. So therefore Krishna's name is Madan Mohan, and I'll tell you why soon. So the arrows of Cupid, Kamadev or Madan, and those names, it makes a person to be subjected to lust. And the person who becomes lusty, that person or that one cannot really, kind of figure out, why am I like this? Why am I lusty? In other words, sometimes the person may be involved in lusty activities, but still the person is questioning, I don't know how I become like this. Because it's coming from Madan, Kamadev, Cupid, by him, throwing his arrows towards ones. Srila Prabhupada said that the arrows of Cupid are so strong that if someone is struck by one or even, what to speak of, more of these arrows, he will fall in love with some person, and according to the gross material estimation, who is very ugly. And other persons may look at this sort of person who's not ugly, but they cannot figure out how can he so-called fall in love with someone who's so ugly, if you compare it on the material plane. But that's Kamadev, that's Cupid. So that's how powerful the arrows of Cupid or Madan or Kamadev are. So this Madan, he came to Vrindavan with the thought of piercing Krishna. And he came to a place nearby, which is between our temple, Vrindavan, Krishna Balaram Mandir, and Madan Mohan temple on the Parikrama. And every time Madan used to fix an arrow and aim it at Krishna, one of the gopis, somehow or the other, without them knowing that Madan is trying to throw arrows or shoot arrows, one of the gopis will come in front of Krishna. And then he'll try to shoot Krishna again. But every time he did that, and he sees Krishna, then Krishna disappears, and he sees Krishna, and then Krishna disappears, he became attracted to Krishna, enchanted by the beauty of Krishna. And Krishna's beauty was even more excellent, or super excellent, because of the accompaniment of the gopis who were surrounding him. It is like a crest jewel amongst other jewels, like in the form of a necklace. So then, when he was enchanted by the beauty of Krishna, he completely forgot his function as Madan or Kamadev or Cupid. And automatically his bow dropped and his arrows fell. And he also fell down in the ecstasy of being attracted by Krishna's beauty. So therefore, although the whole world may be under the influence of Cupid, or you could say, to put it straightforwardly, under the influence of sex desire, basically. But Cupid himself becomes attracted by Krishna. So therefore, we had the word Mohan. Madan is Cupid and Krishna is Madan Mohan. That means the attractor of Cupid. And Radharani is known as Madan Mohan Mohini. That means the attractor of Cupid. Where Radharani attracts Krishna and Krishna is being attracted to Srimati Radharani, and therefore he also attracts Cupid. It's a wonderful sort of exchange of combination of transcendental love between this demigod towards Krishna and Krishna's love for the service of Srimati Radharani. I'm going to sort of continue to read the next, you could say, several paragraphs towards the end, and then I'll continue again. So can you put that onto the screen? Yes, this fact I'm reading on page 16 in the center of the page, if you have the book. This fact is corroborated by Krishna in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 14th chapter, verse 20, where he says, quote, "My dear Uddhava, you may know it from me that the attraction I feel for devotional service rendered by my devotees is not to be attained even by the performance of mystic yoga, philosophical speculation, ritualistic sacrifices, the study of the Veda, the practice of severe austerities, or the giving of everything in charity. These are, of course, very nice activities, but they are not as attractive to me as the transcendental loving service rendered by my devotees." Now, in the next paragraph, we go 4 lines down. A devotee always appreciates the activities of other devotees. This is what attracts Krishna also. I'm repeating. Beautiful line. A devotee always appreciates the activities of other devotees. Now, the important word in this line is the word always, not just sometimes. Okay? And I'm reading on. Yudhishthir Maharaj was appreciating the qualities of Prahlad, and this is one of the symptoms of a pure devotee. A pure devotee never thinks himself great. He always thinks that other devotees are greater than himself. So now I'm moving on to the final paragraph. And it says the words in Bhagavad Gita. Can you go down to the final paragraph now? Yeah. In Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna appeared in his universal form, Arjuna prayed, "My dear Krishna, I thought of you as my cousin brother, and so I have shown disrespect to you in so many ways, calling you Krishna, or friend. But you are so great that I could not understand." Unquote. So that was the position of the Pandavas. Although Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the greatest among all greats, he remained with those royal brothers, being attracted by their devotion, by their friendship, and by their love. That is the proof of how great this devotion is, how great this process of devotional service is. It can attract even the Supreme Personality of Godhead. God is great, but devotional service is greater than God because it attracts Him. People who are not in devotional service can never understand what great value there is in rendering service to the Lord. Before Brahmananda Prabhu became a devotee, he was studying English, and he had one professor, who used to interpret the works of literature in terms of different philosophers, which includes one philosopher named Freud. I don't know how to really pronounce that name. Freud. And this Freud's philosophy or theory is that everyone is impelled by sex desire. And Brahmananda Prabhu, before he joined, he had his sort of own spiritual interpretation of Freud's works. So when he met Srila Prabhupada, he told Srila Prabhupada about the course that he was studying and about his interpretation and the interpretation of the professors. Because the professor said that everyone is impelled by sex desire. Now, Srila Prabhupada replied that your professor is right. In the material world, everyone is acting on the basis of sex desire. So we cannot become free from the influence of Madan unless we become attracted to Madan Mohan, which is Krishna. And that's why I want to speak of the non-devotees, even the philosophical speculators, the Gyanis, or the yogis, have difficulty in coming free also, becoming free from the sex attraction. But devotees who become attracted by Madan Mohan, by serving the deity in the temple, by serving Krishna, they become free from the attraction of lust. So that's how powerful, Krishna's attraction is, that the whole material world is attracted by Madan, but Madan is attracted by Krishna, who is known as Madan Mohan, and the all-attractive Krishna is attracted by the all-attractive Srimati Radharani, and therefore she is called Madan Mohan, Mohini. So this emphasis on Madan Mohan and Madan Mohan, Mohini, is a very powerful factor in our devotional practices. We should always remember that why we are becoming involved in the practices of Krishna consciousness. And it's for this one thing, is to become free from the attraction between male and female and the union of male and female. Now, how to relate to this in another way of actually not giving up on our practices and moving forward with that supreme goal in our consciousness. Rupa Goswami has also written one beautiful prayer. And Srila Prabhupada mentioned the prayer on one morning walk in Chicago when he was with different devotees, including Brahmananda Prabhu on that walk. So in America, they have one car, and they named that car Thunderbird. So Srila Prabhupada asked the devotees in that morning walk in Chicago, when he saw the name Thunderbird in the car, he asked, "What is Thunderbird?" So they said that according to American Indian legend, there is one bird called Thunderbird. And then Srila Prabhupada asked, is there actually any such bird as Thunderbird? But they could not say. They could not say. Then Srila Prabhupada said, in India, there is one bird called Thunderbird. And the Sanskrit word for that is called Chataka. It's pronounced Chataka, but it's spelled Cataka, Chataka bird. And why is it called a thunderbird? Prabhupada says that the nature of the Chataka bird is that it becomes attracted by thunder, which includes lightning. See? And when it hears the sound of thunder, it's like the sweetest music, to its ears, to its hearing faculty. Why? Because the Chataka bird knows that when there's thunder, there'll be the cloud, and from the cloud will come water. And no matter how thirsty this Chataka bird is, at the best of times, because they move around and they fly wherever the place is, like a rainy season. They go to that area. See? Because they know that's where the thunder will come. Thunderbird, Chataka. So this Chataka bird, it will not take water from any other source. It will not drink water from some lake or some river or something. This Chataka bird will always hover. That means fly high up, but will always stop under one cloud and wait for the thunder to come, which will make it happy. And when the thunder comes into the cloud and when the raindrops come, it waits for those raindrops and immediately it drinks water. So the devotees asked Srila Prabhupada, what is the meaning of this analogy of the Chataka bird in relation to devotees? So Srila Prabhupada replied, the devotee will only take mercy from Krishna. Even if the cloud thunders and it gives lightning, but the Chataka bird will not accept water from any other source. It will still stay with the cloud. So the devotee also, he'll only take mercy from Krishna. Even if Krishna does not give mercy, but just gives thunder and lightning, so to speak, difficulties. In other words, still the devotee will never leave Krishna and he'll never go for mercy to the material world. Just like the Chataka will not take water from the ground. And even if the cloud does not give water, it will not come to the ground to take water. So that's how it is with us, that a devotee only wants Krishna's mercy. And a devotee will not take any other kind of mercy or even shelter, save and accept from Krishna. So that's why Krishna is also attracted to the devotee, because the devotee never gives up Krishna. Even if Krishna gives the devotee difficulties, like in the form of thunder and lightning, or the Chataka bird, and without any water coming from the clouds. All right. We could take some questions at this point, if you have. Otherwise, I can move on to chapter 2. Anyone? Because we have concluded chapter 1 now.
Maharaj, so far no one is asking any questions.
Do you have a question?
No, Maharaj. So no, not yet.
All right. So the introduction in this book and chapter 1 falls in the category of a Samanya Bhakti, or devotional service in general. So now we're about to go to chapter 2. And chapter 2 is called the second wave within the Eastern division of the Nectar of Devotion. Whereas the introduction in chapter 1 was called the first wave. So the second wave begins with chapter 2 right up to chapter 16. And it's called Sadhana-Bhakti. So I'm going to that point now. It's on page 19 in the text, and I'm about to read. Yes. Chapter 2, the first stages of devotion. Now, sometimes when I read, I may put in some Sanskrit words with the English right next to it, which is not there in the book itself. Okay? I'm reading chapter 2, the first stages of devotion. The three categories of devotional service which Srila Rupa Goswami describes in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu are listed as devotional service in practice, which is called Sadhana-Bhakti. devotional service in ecstasy, which is called Bhava Bhakti, and devotional service in pure love of Godhead, which is called Prema Bhakti. There are many subheadings in each of these categories. Generally, it is understood that in the category of devotional service and practice, there are two different qualities. Devotional service and ecstasy has 4 qualities, and devotional service in pure love of God has 6 qualities. These qualities will be explained by Srila Rupa Goswami later on. Now, we're about to understand what is the qualification, in a way, to practice devotional service, and that's the next paragraph, and I'm reading. In this connection, Srila Rupa Goswami suggests that the person eligible for Krishna consciousness or devotional service can be classified by his particular taste. So the word taste means ruchi in Sanskrit. He says that devotional service is a continual process from one's previous life. No one can take to devotional service unless he has some previous connection to it. For example, suppose in this life I practice devotional service to some extent. Even though it is not 100% perfectly performed, whatever I have done will not be lost. In my next life, from the very point where I stop in this life, I shall begin again. In this way, there's always a continuity. But if there is no continuity, if only by chance a person takes interest in a pure devotee's instruction, he can be accepted and can advance in devotional service. Anyway, for persons who have a natural taste for understanding books like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, devotional service is easier than for those who are simply accustomed to mental speculation and argumentative processes. So what's the essential part here? Is that a devotional service is based on some taste. It's some taste. And Prabhupada mentions this in this paragraph twice. So therefore that is called ruchi. And taste means just like, when you eat something, if it's tasty, you want more of it. You want more of it. So in the same way, if one has an initial taste in accepting devotional service and practicing it, then that taste naturally will definitely increase. Will definitely increase. We all have taste in devotional service, even if you're in the beginning stages of devotional service. Even if you're not fully practicing devotional service, but you somehow apply voluntary force to also, practice devotional service. So that's another meaning of Sadhana-Bhakti. Sadhana-Bhakti means that you may not feel like doing it, but there is some sense of taste which you want to bring up, and therefore you may apply some voluntary force. And applying voluntary force means what you are currently tasting materially is not tasty. It's not much of taste. It's actually old, dry, stale, hackneyed, and it's temporary. So therefore you come back to the practice of devotional service, where you apply voluntary force to get that taste. And you know that it is there, so therefore you apply voluntary force. So now I'm reading further, not the next paragraph, but the following paragraph, which is on page 20. And it's 2 more paragraphs down. It says about you could say, in one sense, what is the meaning in a practical sense of devotional service and practice, or sadhana bhakti. So I'm reading. Practice means employing our senses in some particular type of work. Therefore, devotional service and practice means utilizing our different sensory organs in service to Krishna. Some of the senses are meant for acquiring knowledge, and some are meant for executing the conclusions of our thinking, feeling, and willing. So, practice means employing both the mind and the senses in practical devotional service. This practice is not for developing something artificial. For example, a child learns or practices to walk. This walking is not unnatural. The walking capacity is there originally in the child, and simply by a little practice, he walks very nicely. Similarly, devotional service to the Supreme Lord is the natural instinct of every living entity. Even uncivilized men like the Aborigines offer the respectful obeisance to something wonderful exhibited by nature's law. And they appreciate that behind some wonderful exhibition or action, there is something supreme. So this consciousness, though lying dormant in those who are materially contaminated, is found in every living entity. And when purified, this is called Krishna consciousness. I'm reading on. There are certain prescribed methods for employing our senses and mind in such a way that our dormant consciousness for loving Krishna will be invoked as much as the child, with a little practice, can begin to walk. One who has no basic walking capacity cannot walk by practice. Similarly, Krishna consciousness cannot be aroused simply by practice. Actually, there is no such practice. When we wish to develop our innate capacity for devotional service, there are certain processes which, by our accepting and executing them, will cause that dormant capacity to be invoked. Such practice is called Sadhana-Bhakti. Put me back onto the screen. Now, we find that, just to summarize this reading of these two paragraphs, that practice means employing one's senses in some particular type of work. And practice may also mean employing both the mind and senses in that practical type of activity in devotional service. Now, the practice itself is not the cause of bhakti or devotion, but rather it will cause the dormant capacity within us to be invoked, to come out. So that is a most important point here to actually remember. So I'll just say this a little bit more. Now, sadhana means practice, and sadhya means the perfection or the goal of the practice. So by sadhana bhakti, one attains sadhya bhakti. So that may give rise to the idea that prema is caused by sadhana. Not really. It is already within us. But the practice will bring out that prema that's already within us. And this beautiful example of the child, learning to walk. In other words, the innate capacity of walking is already in the child. It is not something that he has to get from outside of himself by somebody else. But what he needs from the outside is actually to practice. And one has to be willing to practice. So in order to be willing to practice, the child has to surrender to the assistance and instructions of the mother or the father. So they will help the child to walk. So similarly, our senior devotees, Shiksha Gurus, Diksha Gurus help us. But they don't help us by giving us the prema. They help us to invoke the beginning stages of the prema to come out of ourselves. So it's nothing to be gotten from outside. It's already natural. We have that. Just as the innate capacity to walk is there in the child, and eventually the child by his own will jump and he will dance without even thinking about whether I should jump or dance. So therefore, practice means the beginning of devotional service. And when that same innate capacity for serving and loving Krishna is awakened from inside of us, it becomes natural. And Srila Prabhupada gives another beautiful example of this. That a student, when he first goes to school, he has to practice writing A, B, C, X, Y, Z, like that. But once he learns how to read and write, he doesn't need to think about forming the letters. It's natural for him to write the letters. He's not thinking, is this A now I'm writing? He's not feeling that. See? So naturally, then he wants to study the books, he wants to write, and he becomes a scholar or even becomes an author. So the practice helps one to awaken our innate capacity to become natural, which is already there within the soul. It doesn't require anything to be added from outside. So therefore, there's beautiful verses there from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabunai Shravanadi Sudachite Kareya Udai. In other words, pure devotional service or prema for Krishna, Krishna Prema, is already within us, but it has to be awakened by hearing and chanting and remembering Krishna, which is actually the practice of devotional service. Now, within devotional service, there are two types, and we're going to come to that shortly. I'm moving on to the next paragraph, which begins with every living entity under the spell of the material energy. And I'm moving on like about 4, 5, 8 lines down. And it gives you examples of practice. It says, therefore, you with me? We must practice Sadhana-Bhakti, which means to offer Mangal Arati, deity worship, in the morning, to refrain from certain material activities, that means like following the 4 regulative principles, to offer obeisances to the spiritual master, and to follow many other rules and regulations which will be discussed here one after another. These practices will help one become cured of madness. And then in the next paragraph, at the end of the next paragraph, it is the duty of the Acharya, the spiritual master, to find the ways and means for his disciple to fix his mind on Krishna. That is the beginning of Sadhana-Bhakti. And we'll discuss that in chapters to come, each point in terms of, approaching his bona fide spiritual master, inquiring for him, accepting instruction from the spiritual master, and so forth. Okay? Then I'm reading the next paragraph. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us an authorized program for this purpose, centering around the chanting of Hare Krishna mantra. This chanting has so much power that it immediately attaches one to Krishna. That is the beginning of sadhana bhakti. Somehow or other, one has to fix his mind on Krishna, and then the example of Ambarish Maharaj is given. Somehow or other, by any means, one has to fix his mind on Krishna. Now, I'm going to go to read now about sadhana bhakti, which has 2 divisions. And I'm going to just read the next paragraph and then explain further. Okay? There'll be a lot of explanation thereafter. Now, this sadhana bhakti, or practice of devotional service, may also be divided into 2 parts. The first part is called service according to regulative principles. One has to follow these different regulative principles by the order of the spiritual master or on the strength of authoritative scriptures And there can be no question of refusal. That is called Vaidhi, regulated. One has to do it without argument. So Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. Another part of Sadhana Bhakti is called Raganuga. Raganuga refers to the point at which, by following the regulative principles, one becomes a little more attached to Krishna and executes devotional service out of natural love. For example, a person engaged in devotional service may be ordered to rise early in the morning and offer arati, which is the form of deity worship. In the beginning, by the order of his spiritual master, one rises early in the morning and offers arati. But then he develops real attachment. When he gets this attachment, he automatically tries to decorate the deity and prepare different kinds of dresses and thinks of different plans to execute his devotional service nicely. Although it is within the category of practice, this offering of loving service is spontaneous. So the practice of devotional service, sadhana bhakti, can be divided into two parts, namely regulative, which means Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, and spontaneous, which means Raganuga sadhana bhakti. Now, it's a wonderful thing how from Vaidhi sadhana bhakti one can enter into Raganuga sadhana bhakti. At the same time, it can be explained quite in simple terms. These scriptures tell us that if we want to be fearless at the time of death, we should chant and hear about Krishna and remember him, which was actually in the next paragraph, but I'm going to paraphrase that for us now. So, fear is a symptom of the Kali Yuga, and fear is the consciousness of almost everyone in this material world who is not involved in Krishna consciousness. Now, if somebody has some spontaneous attraction, that person will want to chant and hear about Krishna without being told any of the benefits of it. But how to become fearless in this material world, which is full of suffering? And we want to become free of suffering, which means kleshagni, which we discussed in the first chapter. So when we hear revealed scriptures, or from the revealed scriptures, and engage in devotional service, then we become free from suffering. But we want to become free from suffering, then it actually means that we have to be finding some shelter. So Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, follow the rules and regulations, means that we should have faith that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Krishna can deliver us from all suffering, and therefore we engage in devotional service. Now, who can help us along the way for that are the devotees, which includes the Diksha Guru and the Shiksha Guru. Now, in terms of this Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti becoming more spontaneous, or Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti, that means spontaneous devotional service, but still within the practice. That means the activity is the same. Now, if someone has some spontaneous attraction, that person does not need to be told the benefits about hearing and chanting about Krishna. Because the person takes pleasure in just hearing and chanting. There's a liking for it. It's a natural liking. So therefore, hearing and chanting about Krishna is actually our natural constitutional position, which is also within Vaidhi's, at least Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti, because it's more liking, which is spontaneous. So one newspaper reporter, he asked Srila Prabhupada that you are doing everything for your Krishna. You are chanting, you are reading, you are preaching, you are writing, you are developing your movement, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. and you're expanding your movement, all this is for your Krishna. But what if in the end there is no Krishna? This newspaper reporter asked. Wonderful question. So Srila Prabhupada replied that even if there is no Krishna, still I will do the same things. They are so nice, even if there was no Krishna. Because Prabhupada said, what am I doing? I am dancing, I am chanting, I am honoring prasadam, I am discussing about Krishna, I'm associating with the devotees. And it is so nice, even if there wasn't any Krishna at the end. But still, I will not do anything different. I will still do the same thing. Just see that deep faith. That type of faith we should have. Don't get up one morning and say, why am I in this Krishna consciousness movement? Why should I be chanting? Be careful for that. Just be careful for that. Because, like, Patitatharana Jagannath Prabhu asked some other, or maybe Bhaskar may have asked, I'm not sure. But it's like we know what our lives are before coming to Krishna consciousness, and we know what our lives are now. So these activities are helping us. But definitely there is Krishna. Because the newspaper reporter didn't have faith and wasn't practicing, he asked some sort of question like that to Srila Prabhupada. Now Srila Prabhupada gives three nice examples in relation to how you can move from Vaidhi Sadhana-Bhakti, from practice, to Raganuga Sadhana-Bhakti, to spontaneous or devotionally perfect consciousness. And this is easy to understand. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Prabhupada gives two examples in the Madhya Lila in the 22nd chapter. He says that devotional service must be without ulterior motive. Then material conditions cannot check it. And gradually one can come to the platform of spontaneous devotional service. And this beautiful example of a child is sent to school by sort of force to receive an education. But when the child gets, as he grows up, when he gets a little taste of education in an advanced stage, he automatically participates and he becomes a learned scholar when he grows. So a child may be forced to go to school and read and write according to the instructions of the teachers. That is called Sadhana-Bhakti. But when he spontaneously is inclined to write and even becomes a scholar, then that is called Raganuga Sadhana-Bhakti. It's the same activity. One is in practice and one is in perfection. And Srila Prabhupada gives another one of his own analogies within our experience. And he says that one has to learn to use a typewriter or like a keyboard now we have, on the computers, by following the regulative principles of the typing book. One has to place his fingers on the keys in such a way and practice. But when one becomes adept, he can type swiftly and correctly without even looking at the keys or at the keyboard. So similarly, one has to follow the rules and regulations of devotional service set forth like by the typing book, but by the scriptures and the spiritual master. And then one can come to the point of spontaneous loving service. This love is already there in the heart of everyone, like we mentioned before. But by practice, it becomes more and more revived, as Srila Prabhupada would say. And when the revival is more and more continuous, then one will actually be more and more sort of attracted to be engaging in the practices without any effort, without even applying voluntary force, without even being told what to do and what not to do. Now we have a few examples within our own practices in Krishna consciousness, which we can easily relate to. Like in the beginning stages, we practice to rise early in the morning and you attend Mangal Aarti, even sort of without having a liking for it. But at the same time, in our hearts, we know it's good for us. So therefore, we rise early in the morning and attend Mangal Aarti. Why? Because the scriptures and the spiritual masters advise us to do so. And therefore, we follow, although we may not be attracted to it at the beginning stages. But later, when one develops some liking to rise early, that means taking rest early to rise early, and then spontaneously he wants to get up. He wants to get up. Even if he places his alarm at 3 or 3:30 to be ready for Mangalati at 4:30, sometimes, one's sleep breaks at 2 o'clock and one just wants to get up and chant Hare Krishna. And then don't have to wait for the alarm and go to the temple. And he's thinking how I'm looking forward to see Krishna at Mangalati or Radharani or Balaram or Gaur or Giri Govardhan or Jagannath Baladev Subhadra and so forth. See? So that spontaneous liking, it gets added in a sense to the, you could say, sort of simply following obediently or by being disciplined by the orders of the scriptures and the acharyas and the spiritual masters. However, in the end, in and of itself, it's like a type of Raganuga Bhakti, Raganuga Sadhana-Bhakti in that sense. So therefore, when Vaidhi Bhakti gets like sort of, or devotional service and practice gets combined with some taste and pleasure, then it goes beyond the rules and regulations. Although you're still following the rules, but now you're more spontaneously attracted to not following the rules, but following it at the same time. So therefore, there are other activities that we are attracted to spontaneously. And it doesn't take very long to be attracted spontaneously to that. And one is that sometimes you run practically to go for deity darshan, say at what time, 7:15 or 7:30 in different temples. You look forward to see, the deities in their beautiful new outfits for the day. You just run. And you wait for the curtain to open and Govindam Hari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. And you look forward to see the new outfit for the day, for the deities. So that's called Raganuga, spontaneous. And when you see the deities, when you get the darshan, then sometimes spontaneously, every day, your eyes immediately goes to either Krishna's flute or Radharani's beautiful face or Jagannath's eyes. Immediately it goes there. Whereas according to rules and regulations, one may have to take darshan of the deity starting from left to right, first from the feet and then upwards up to the smiling face, and then go to the next deity on the right. That's rules and regulations. But you can become spontaneous and your eyes immediately goes to a particular feature of the deity. And then after you have appeased your spontaneity in your own internal heart without telling anyone, then you can follow the rules. Go from left to right, from lotus feet upwards, up to the smiling face. So don't check that kind of spontaneity. And that all of us do experience. Another type of spontaneity is kirtan. Devotees are spontaneously attracted to kirtan. That's wonderful. That's called Raganuga Sadhana-Bhakti. See? And then different devotees may have different spontaneities, in terms of the practice of devotional service, but it becomes natural for them in their liking. Like some devotees just love to cook. Some devotees just love to serve prasadam. Some devotees just love to clean the temple. Some devotees just love to study Prabhupada's books. Some devotees just love to be with the cows. All this is Raganuga Sadhana-Bhakti. It's spontaneous and attractive to you and attractive to the process itself of devotional service. Of course, there's one that all of us are combinedly attracted to. Mahaprasadam and prasadam. Even when we go and honor prasadam, to say the rules and regulations before honoring prasadam, Mahaprasade Govinde Namo Brahmani Vaishnave Sarira Vidyajal, so forth. Yeah. So somebody was thinking, oh, that devotee now, he's saying the prayer, he's taking so long, I just want to honor prasad, I just want to honor prasad. So it's a type of affection and attraction to honoring Krishna prasadam, which is none different from associating with Krishna. So these are various different examples of from Vaidhi Bhakti to Raganuga Sadhana-Bhakti. Vaidhi Bhakti means Vaidhi Sadhana-Bhakti to Raganuga Sadhana-Bhakti. All right, we have about 20 minutes. If you have any comments or questions thus far, or even other comments or other questions, you can ask now. Anyone? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare
Krishna
Krishna, Ma.
Hare
Thank
Hare,
you, ma'am.
Hare
Uh,
Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Please come onto the screen.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble.
Yes, Sanjana Gopika Mataji.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I have a question. In the regarding sadhana bhakti, is for me is sometime I'm trying to get up early and then finish my round, but sometime I can do, but sometime it's very difficult, and it again it become gap for some time, and again I tried. Means how we can make like regular basis, Maharaj, how the I just finished my everything in the morning.
Okay. Your situation is a bit unique and different, but it can also be in relationship to several devotees, many devotees. You have two daughters. And I mentioned previously that, after you have completed your duties as a mother and wife in the morning, then you should begin to chant your rounds and at least read Srimad Bhagavatam or hear classes on Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's your sadhana for now until your children are grown up on a practical level. See? However, you may also know that if you rest a little early and rise early, and while the children don't need to be attended to in the morning because they may get up a little later, then you can practice your sadhana at that time. So some days may be different from other days for you. For example, during the week, Monday to Friday may be a little different from Saturday and Sunday. So wherever possible, one should try to follow the morning program as best as possible. However, if for practical sake one cannot do because of being a wife and a mother or a husband and a father, then eventually that duties as wife and mother will also change as the children grow up. As the children grow up. So you should work out your own practicalities in terms of your sadhana. However, as best as possible, all the family members should try to rest early and somehow should get up early, which is the sort of secret to a good sadhana in the morning, including chanting one's japa. All right?
Yes, Maharaj. Yes, I'm trying for that. Thank you.
You go on trying. Yes. Next, a question, anyone?
Haribol.
Haribol. Come
Very
onto
well.
the screen.
Hare Krishna
Yes,
Maharaj, please accept my basic glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Okay, we'll take, who's this, just two persons. Now it's, who's on the screen?
Taravali, Devidasi.
Okay, Taravali, okay. All right, Taravali, you can ask your question now. Then we'll take the other person who wanted to come onto the screen. You go ahead, Taravali.
Thank you, Maharaj. You mentioned that we need to apply voluntary force to get the taste for devotional service. Do you have any practical tips on how to apply this force when you go through like lows and like how to do that?
You see, voluntary force comes when you actually go through lows. In other words, when you are not feeling Krishna conscious, but you know Krishna conscious is the best thing, then you'll apply voluntary force to practice devotional service, especially sadhana in the morning. But you don't need to apply voluntary force if you're not going down through a low ebb in your life. You will do it anyway. But going low will give you an impetus to apply voluntary force to practice Krishna consciousness. So sometimes when we are not practicing nicely, especially in the mornings, on a regular normal day, except when the health is poor, or maybe there's some emergency, or something may come up, but that's not an everyday regular situation. See? So therefore, Krishna arranges that when you are becoming a little bit weak in one's sadhana, that we normally call, which is going to bring bhakti, sadhana-bhakti. And Krishna arranges that you may go through an all-time low and then you want to lift yourself up again by applying voluntary force. By applying voluntary force. So you answered your own question partially within your question. Is that all right, Ravali?
Yes, thank you, Maharaj.
Is there another question based on what I said for now?
No, thank you.
Okay. Who's the other devotee that was coming onto the, can you come onto the screen?
Haribol. Haribol, Guru Maharaj.
Bhaskar from Hare Krishna, tell us your
Krishna.
question.
Yes, Maharaj. Is it wise to put a deity at our place, or it is better to go to mandir to take darshan?
I'm not trying to misunderstand your question, or maybe I don't understand fully.
Is it wise to put?
It means that if you're a grihastha,
Yes.
it is sort of nice to have deities at home to worship. Why?
Yes.
Because you are living in a griha. Griha means house. Right? So grihastha means a householder.
Yes.
One who has a house. See? But in order to make the house into a mandir,
Yes.
see? So the word mandir in English is called temple. But the word man means consciousness or mentality. And dira means sober. Dira means
Sober.
sober. So if you have deities at home and you worship them according to your practicality times of worship, then your house becomes a temple, mandira. That means your consciousness becomes sober. Man means consciousness and dira means sober. And there are many, you could say, sort of benefits to having deities at home. You will be sure to offer everything that you cook as prasad. You'll be regulated. In other words, whatever you cook, you'll take it to the deity to offer. See? Very important. That's one. And Prabhupada gives 4 things. And secondly, Prabhupada says that You will only honor Krishna Prasad. Second thing is that you will chant the holy name because the deity is there. And you will read the scriptures because the deity is there. See? We good so far?
Yes, it
So
is good, but
worshiping the deity, chanting the holy name, honoring prasadam.
yes, but at times, if someone is alone,
Let me finish. I haven't
yes,
finished my answer. Sorry, I haven't finished my answer. Yeah. Now, we know that if you have deities at home, you'll be more careful in what you do at home
yes,
because Krishna is here. The deity is not stone. The deity is not material. See? You'll be more careful. So that's the greatest advantage of having deities in one home. It is good as living in a temple. And if you have deities at home, you know you have to rise early also. Because Mangalarati, you have to go and greet them at Mangalarati. It's a very important thing. However, there are exceptions. There are exceptions in this sense. As a sort of encouragement, we can say that devotees should have deities at home. Although if one is living near the temple, very near the temple, one doesn't need to have any deities at home because you can easily walk to the temple or drive a short distance to the temple and go for Mangalati and then engage in deity worship there. Do service in the temple because you're very near the temple.
yes,
So you don't need your own deities at home in that sense. Another type of devotee who lives at home as an exception is a preacher. He is too busy spreading Krishna consciousness with his family.
yes,
With his family. He may not have time to engage in deity worship at home because he likes to be preaching. He wants to go out. So he doesn't need to have deities. He can have pictures as an altar and he can go out and preach, distribute books, Harinam Sankirtan, distribute prasadam. So he doesn't need to have deities. So it depends on which category you are.
yes, Maharaj.
If you are near the temple, you don't need to have deities. But if you already have deities and you move near the temple, you don't give them away, you still continue. You
Yes,
still continue. See? That's very, very important to understand one's own circumstances, and then in that sense, one should see whether one wants to worship deities at home or not. Of course, every principle should be in the practicality of being favorable to be engaged in devotional service and bringing pleasure to Krishna. So if having deities at home helps you to be more Krishna conscious and favorable to Krishna and favorable in your mentality to become more advanced in Krishna consciousness, so why not? That should be there. Srila Prabhupada gave his own example, of his
yes,
father, Gaur Mohan De. See? And the local neighborhood deities, Shishi Radha Govinda, I think, yes. Neighborhood deities of the Mulik's family, he used to go and see. And every morning when Srila Prabhupada was about to get up as Abai, Charan, he used to hear, Prabhupada makes that sound, he hears, that Gaur Mohan Day was ringing the bell, ding, 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 ding. So those impressions also, if you have deities at home, it's first class Krishna conscious impressions for our little children and growing children. And they grow up in a devotional atmosphere. But like I said, it depends. It depends.
yes,
It depends. Like I know of devotees who are very enthusiastic book distributors. They don't have deities. Their deity is the books. They have a morning program, they have an altar, and they go out on book distribution whenever the time allows, apart from their work time and taking time off to take care of the family and so forth like that. So it's different for different devotees.
Yes.
Is that all right?
Yes, Maharaj. Well, yes. Another simple question.
Please tell.
What happens? What happens if someone is alone and he gets ill? He can serve the deities. It will be difficult.
Yes, you're asking a practical question. You
Yes.
see, if you are living on your own, not alone,
Yeah.
not alone. Krishna is there, the holy name is there,
Yes.
and devotee sangha is there in the community. Yeah.
Very well.
If you're on your own, in a sense, in your home, and if your health is not good, then you should inform the local temple that your health is not good and you can't do the service. That sometimes happens, not all the time.
Yes.
And at the same time, we should know that first we should take care of our health, then we can perform nice service. But no matter how much we take care of our health, still, old age and disease will come. And we cannot be overwhelmed by just old age and disease and say, I can't do any service. We have to tolerate it and move on still and do some service. Okay? Some things we have to live with, just like we're living with this material body. It's designed for suffering. But still, we engage in some service, even if the health is not very good. All right?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you very much.
We have
Hare
about
Krishna.
5 minutes or so. So if there's one more question, I could take that.
Maharaj, there's two person asking question. One is Jolye Kaur and Haladini Gopika Mataji. So
I'll take Anjana Gopika first, and then we'll take the next.
Haladini Gopika.
Aladini Gopika. So tell us your question, and then the other person is who?
Joline Kaur.
Okay, who was first?
Joline Kaur was first.
Tell him to come on to the screen.
Okay. Please come to the screen.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, how are you?
Good. I particularly like your lecture that Sadhana-Bhakti was part of devotional service, and I particularly like today the example that you gave that about the reporter asking Srila Prabhupada what if is in the end there is no Krishna. So the question is that, of course, during chanting sometimes these flashing doubts would come to the mind, and how do we address these thoughts effectively?
Well, when one chants Hare Krishna, the doubts will come. See? And the doubts are is a part feature of the process to test you whether you actually want to be in Krishna consciousness or whether you actually want Krishna. So having some doubts that's a fleeting now and again is not a problem. But it is there in the formative stages, in the very, very beginning of formative stages, it's there. But those doubts will be cleared by one continuing with the process of chanting and hearing, association of devotees, and some practical devotional service and the honoring Krishna Prasad. You will find if you persist on your own with the practices, of course, with the support of the association of devotees, then that doubts will leave you. You won't be able to invite doubts to come to you. See? And even if the doubts want to come, they have no way to come. Because it is lesser and lesser and lesser in its frequency, and it comes to nil. So it's not a problem to have doubts. But what's the real problem is when you give it up because of those doubts. That shouldn't be there. But never give the process of Krishna consciousness. Even if one is sort of haunted by some doubts that may be there. Never ever give up the process of Krishna consciousness. And what to speak of that? Even if you try to give it up, you can't give it up. It's just eternally your natural nature to be Krishna conscious. And once you connect to it again to revive it, it will just become more and more, and it will be a whole natural, eternal existence in Krishna consciousness.
Beautiful. Thank you, Maharaj.
You're welcome. Okay, next question. We have a
Hare
few
Krishna
minutes.
Maharaj.
Who's that, Ladini?
Yes,
Gopika?
Maharaj. I offer my humble obeisance. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Sorry, I cannot come on the screen at the moment, Maharaj.
Ladini Gopika, but I can see a beautiful picture or photograph of Srivas Thakur,
Yes, Maharaj.
Pancha Tattva. Wow.
Yes.
Now, but I cannot get your darshan. Where are you? The servant of Shiva.
Some other time, Maharaj. Sorry.
Why? Because if I see you answering the question, I'll get a feeling of your consciousness and it'll help me answer you better. I want to serve you more, serve you better. Come on, answer. Ladini,
Okay.
Gopika.
In some other time, Maharaj, if possible.
What?
May I do
I
that
can't-
some other time?
Okay, tell me your question.
So Maharaj, yesterday you had mentioned that the
1 minute, get me into the screen. Haribol, get me onto the screen. Okay. Ladini, Gopika
Yes.
Mataji, tell me your question.
So Maharaj, yesterday you were mentioning that the quality that is required to be Krishna conscious is to be sincere. Be sincere that we only want to serve Krishna and not so much ourselves. So I find that as a philosophical point, I'm able to follow that. But in practice, it's easier to, my mindset is that I don't want to leave Prabhupada's movement, no matter what. And that's what keeps me going in my devotional services. So I just wanted your comment on that.
You see, if we serve Krishna and we serve Krishna's devotees and we engage in the process of devotional service, that means Bhagavan, Bhakta, and Bhakti, then automatically we are serving ourselves. Automatically. Like Srila Prabhupada gave the example at the end of the preface, is that, if you switch off the light, you will not see yourself. See? And you will not know what to do. So similarly, without the light, you will not exist and your shadow will not exist also. And your activities will not exist. So with that one switch on of our connection to Krishna, we're automatically serving ourselves. But Krishna is never alone. Krishna is with his associates, his expansions, his pastimes, his devotees, the scriptures, and also devotees within the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So it's not that you're not serving yourself. You are serving yourself always because you're serving Krishna. Not only you're serving yourself, you're serving others in relationship to yourself. Is that all right, Ladini?
Sure, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Is there something else about your question you'd like to ask according to my answer? Based on the answer, you have another question?
Just that if that mood is still okay, even if I'm not there to accept that or to work on that consciousness that everything is centered around Krishna.
Everything is centered around service to Krishna. You see the difference?
Yes.
So when you engage in devotional service, you are engaging in devotional service. That means you are also the center. Are we clear?
Yes, Maharaj.
Yes, that is the principal point.
Okay.
This is the principal point, that when you engage in devotional service, you are doing it. So therefore, automatically you are the center, but although it is meant to please Krishna, the service, but you are you are active in it. Your behavior is there. Your liking is there. Favorable for Krishna's service and favorable as Krishna likes us to serve. Is that all right, Landini Gopika?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. We will meet tomorrow. Thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai. Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Branda ki.
Hare
Jai.
Krishna.
Thank you very much.
Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you.
Thank you.
Krishna, thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
you, Maharaj.
Thank you, Krishna Maharaj.
Hey, Krishna.